All right, this is the second video in week 2 of lectures, and so you need to make sure you watch the first one, which covered kind of introductory stuff to the Pentateuch and then Genesis and Exodus, and this will cover Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Now, when you come to Leviticus, you're basically looking at this is a continuation of the law that was given beginning in Exodus chapter 19 and 20. So the last half of Exodus is Israel's still at Mount Sinai, and so a lot of these, the Pentateuch is a recording of what was given during this time when Israel was gathered at Mount Sinai, and God's giving His law instructions on how to live with God there at Mount Sinai. And so Leviticus is a continuation of that. There's not a lot of narrative or stories happening. This is a recording of what God is telling Israel about how to live. And so if you look at chapters 1 through 7, you have a lot of sacrificial laws, instructions on how to do sacrifices, why to do sacrifices. And for a lot of people who try to read through the Bible, maybe in a year or something, they get Genesis, Exodus is really interesting, and they get to Leviticus, and this is where you just get bogged down. Like, what is going on? Why is this here? Why am I, why am I reading this? And it can also seem just kind of bizarre it feels like from a different world. We don't sacrifice animals. We don't have temples. This whole kind of thing can seem very foreign to us. So let me help you a little bit to understand what's going on here and why this is important to the whole revelation of the Bible. The law was really given in large part as a teaching tool for Israel and for us. The sacrificial system is given as a teaching tool in helping people understand how they're supposed to relate to God. One of the things that the Bible teaches and Leviticus teaches is God says, I am holy. That means that He is different than human beings. He is morally perfect, set apart, different, righteous. And because of His holiness, He's a just God. And He must punish sin. If you think about a good judge sees horrific crimes happening, and in you, if He's a good judge, He's going to do something about it. Well, God is the judge of all the earth, and He sees all of this rebellion, all of this wickedness, all of this murder, all of this stealing, all of this coveting, all of this lying, all of this adultery, all of this just horrible treatment of others, and rebellion and rejection of Him, the true God. And from His holiness, He must punish sin. And so you have this problem, right? So you have Israelites, God saying, you're going to be my people, I'm going to be your God, I'm going to dwell with you, I'm going to dwell right in the midst of you. Exodus just described how to build the tabernacle so His presence could be right in the middle of His people. But the Israelites are sinners. We'll see that a lot in Numbers, but you also see it in Exodus. And they sin against God, they commit murder, all kinds of immorality. And so how is a holy God going to dwell with this nation filled with people who are not holy, who are morally impure and sinful? Well, God gives them this sacrificial system. And you look just right at the beginning of it, the first few verses of Leviticus, the Lord called Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, speak to the people of Israel. When any of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of livestock from the herd or from the flock. So bring your own animal, He's saying. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he shall offer a male without blemish. So you need to bring something from your own herd so it's got to cost you something, right? And it's got to be without blemish. Don't bring like your worst, lame, sick sheep that you don't want anyway. No, bring the best. He shall bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting of the tabernacle, that he may be accepted before the Lord. Here's what you need to do to be accepted into God's presence, He's saying. He shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted for him to make atonement for him. Then he shall kill the bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and throw the blood against the sides of the altar that is at the entrance of the meeting. So what this is representing, he's saying you put your hands on your bull. It represents that this bull is getting what you deserve. It's dying a death, it's being sacrificed, and it's representing what you deserve. It's a substitute. It's a picture of a substitute for you. It's reminding you, this is what I deserve for my sin. But God is instead accepting something that costs you in the place of your own life. One of the things to know about this, the sacrificial system is a really, lots of animals were killed, but it wasn't like they were just killing the animals and throwing them into a pit. Most of the meat from these sacrificial animals were eaten by the priests, but also by the people who brought them. And it just communicated that a price had to be paid for our sins. And so you have this whole sacrificial system outlined. You have instructions for the priests and a priestly narrative. So you have sacrifices and you have priests. Now, priests were to be mediators between the people and God. They were like the go-betweens to help people and do what needed to be done in order for the people to come into the presence of God. And so there's a lot of directions on how the priests, who are sinners too, can be clean themselves and how they can help other people enact these sacrifices so that they can dwell with God and the sins won't keep them from God. And then you come to Leviticus 11 through 16, and there's all these laws on ritual cleanness. And a lot of people, when they want to criticize the Bible, they make fun of these kinds of laws, and they'll take them out of context, and they'll say, because there's directions on what kind of clothes you should wear and shouldn't wear, what kind of foods you should eat and shouldn't eat, what kinds of, like things like if you've touched a dead person, you can't go into the tabernacle, or if you've had a bodily discharge, whether male or female, or if you have a skin disease, all of these things make you ritually unclean. Now, and what is all this about? Well, again, like I said, God is teaching the people about moral purity and cleanness. But their behavior and their heart needs to be clean and right before God. And one of the ways he teaches them this is by setting up this whole ritual, kind of ceremonial clean laws. And so through these outward rules, he's teaching them you can't just walk in flippantly into the presence of God. No, he's a holy God, and there are things that make us unclean. And so when you have these visible outward things, like the food you eat, and like touching dead bodies or having a skin disease, something visible that was meant to instruct and help them understand that coming into God's presence wasn't something to be taken lightly. And steps had to be taken to remain kind of ceremonially clean, but even more importantly, steps would have to be taken in order to take care of the uncleanness of the human heart and our character and the way we've sinned against God. And so there are these holiness codes of what it means and how God's calling people to live. And you come down to Leviticus chapter 26, and after giving all of these laws, God basically says, if you do these, you'll be blessed. If you don't do them, you'll be cursed. So verse 3, if you walk in my statutes and observe my commandments and do them, then I will give you your rains in their season, and the land shall yield its increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And he's saying, you'll have all these blessings. I will give you peace in the land, and you shall lie down. So you'll have crops, you'll have peace in the land. I will chase away your enemies, you'll have peace on all sides. So if you obey, if you do these things, you'll be blessed. If you don't, you'll be cursed. There will be curses. There will be consequences. If you will not listen to me and will not do all these commandments, if you spurn my statutes, and if your soul abhors my rules, so that you will not do all my commandments, but break my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will visit you with panic, with wasting disease and fever that consume the eyes and make the heart ache, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. So you'll have, your enemies will come and take over, and your crops won't bear fruit. And so the cursings are actually much longer than the blessings, knowing that they're going to break the covenant. And so this law